What's up, everyone? It's episode 113 of Invisible Walls. E3 is officially over. Well, we're kind of over. We just started rolling out our Best of E3 awards, so be sure to check that out over the coming weeks. Hopefully, week. Ryan, what is our schedule for that?
The last one should air next Friday.
July 2nd.
All right, so they'll all be out in the next week. We'd like to put them all up at once. I know we get complaints every year. They're like, why do you roll these out in batches of 4 or so? That's because we just simply can't get them done in time.
It's because we edit them.
Yeah. There's actual work that goes into these. It takes a long time. We got to pull a lot of footage in from all over the E3 landscape. So we're getting them done as quickly as we can, and keep an eye on the site over the next 7 days, and we'll be done by next Friday. Now, the first order of business today is to pick up something that we forgot to handle in the last episode, and that was grading Sony's E3 press conference. We apologize profusely for this. We were pretty much delirious at that point. I'm surprised the show ended up as half decent as it was. But we did forget to rate the Sony press conference, so we're going to go around the table right now and do that. First up on the show, Daniel Bloodworth.
Yo, so I'm going to keep in line with what I did. Last time I gave Microsoft a B and Nintendo an A-, so I'm also going to give Sony an A-.
A-?
Yeah.
Good.
Nice.
Brooks Heber's on the show today. What's your rating?
What up? I'm going to give Sony a B+.
B+.
Yeah, I felt like that was a pretty good score for them.
Now, what did you give Nintendo?
I give Nintendo an A-.
So close.
Yeah, really close. That Kevin Butler bit really put me over the edge. I liked it a lot.
Mike Damiani's here. What is your rating for the presser?
I would give it a B-.
B-.
And
a little lower than the other guys.
Yeah. I think I gave Nintendo an A and Microsoft a C-. So in between those two.
Patrick Morales, what's your grade?
Howdy. I'd have to give Sony, probably based on its content, around a B, edging towards a B+. Still kind of bummed to see Last Guardian not there.
Yeah, I think we're all a little stung by that. Justin Spears here as well. What's your grade?
Satisfactory.
That's an S rank?
Pass.
So that's a C.
It's like, when you're in grade school and
You get an S or
you get an S. They're like, yeah, you did it. You did it.
S rank.
You had a press conference.
Yeah,
Good job.
you showed up. Ryan Stevens is also here. What's your grade?
They also get a B-. I gave everyone a B-. So no one's on the honor roll, but no parents are getting angry with C's.
So you feel like every press conference was on equal footing?
Well, personally, I mean, I get upset anytime I see 3D technology. So
Because you can't
subjectively. Objectively.
Really? You don't have one press conference that you thought was better than the others?
I guess Mario. I guess. Konami takes the cake and eats it.
I mean,
Yeah.
as
The
far
fat
as
kid.
entertainment value is concerned, Konami wins.
No, I think probably. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of joking last week with Nintendo's B- and fuck 3D. I think Nintendo definitely had the presser of the show.
Okay.
Because I don't take these grades very seriously.
In my grade, I gave Nintendo an A+. I'm giving Sony a B+. I think we're all pretty unanimous in that Sony did a pretty good job, just not quite up to scratch with what Nintendo did, but then again, this was the best press conference from Nintendo in recent memory. So there you have it. Once again, we apologize for forgetting to do this last week. On with the show.
I consume a healthy amount of suckers online every day. Like that answer.
All right, so this is kind of going to be a freeform show, a little bit like what we did last week. Of course, last week we kind of divided the show up by press conference. This week we talked about the great stuff about the press conferences and the show last week. This week we're going to dig into the downside of the show a little bit and talk about the E3 dogs. What do you guys think was the biggest disappointment at the show, personally?
I'll take that. I'll field that first. One of my jobs at E3 was to track down and capture as many booth babes as I possibly could. So speaking of
Was
dogs,
it super effective?
I like how you said capture,
I was
because
on the- I
that's
was-
really
Like they're wild animals and you're trapping them.
yeah, I was on the
leaf type.
I was on the perv cam, and it was a lot
What
of
do you
fun.
do? Throw a
going around
Tiffany
there.
bracelet on the floor and just wait behind a booth for them to come and grab it?
Oh, they tear each other apart. We couldn't do that.
See, that's where video production language gets really bizarre.
Yeah.
Going around talking about shooting and capturing people.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to go there and politely ask these young ladies, would you mind if I filmed you and put you on our awesome website? And for the most part, 9 out of 10, no problem. They'd flashed what they had.
Yeah.
It's nice. And then you got the occasional one. This one girl came up to me and she's like, I don't do anything without compensation. And that kind of hit me, and I was like,
anything?
what do you mean? She's like, as if I don't do anything for free. She gave me a little attitude.
But you're
so-
getting paid to be here to represent the games in this booth.
She wasn't worth it at that point.
Yeah.
It was time to walk away.
Based upon our booth-based video, I don't know that any of them were worth it. I don't know what happened.
There was
man.
one really nice one, and I talked to Ashley from FIFA, if she's listening to this. give me a call. She was pretty hot. She wanted to go have a beer afterwards and go watch the game. So there was some cool ones. There were some ugly ones. But I wish there was just more in general.
They all had great personalities.
Yes. All right. Now, what are your dogs?
Stevens, what did you see that you were or didn't see that sort of set you off?
Yeah, I didn't see a lot, but I am just frustrated with free MMOs. They had some great booths, and you'd go over there, but then it's all just like the microtransactions and stuff. And I'm a hypocrite because I think D&D Online's pretty cool, but some of these things filtering in from Korea. No offense, John Chang. It's just it's not really what I want to cover and want to have thrust in front of me. Even though they had some of the better looking booth babes actually, but just kind of a frustrating aspect to the industry. Kind of wish Kensha Hall was maybe there to kind of
Filter out all that stuff.
Yeah. But I will say Ignition had a pretty good booth, so props to Marcus. I was pretty surprised at its spaciousness.
It looked solid.
Did you play El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron?
I live it.
Best title ever.
I thought that character design looked familiar.
Now, how did you guys think about E3 in general? Because in hindsight, it's been a few days now since we've been at the show. Obviously, when you're neck deep in it, you're just trying to get your work done and get through the day so you can get to the next day. Now that I've looked back at the show, I mean, I have some reservations about how it went. Obviously, they put out the stats already of the number of people that were at the show, and it was significantly larger. I think looking at the show last year, it seemed like it had started to revert back to the way it was in 2006. You see a lot of kids running around that are well under the age to be playing M-rated games. It was just a lot more crowded, a lot more difficult to get our work done. I felt like last year they had kind of hit that sweet spot. It was busy enough so that everything looked great on television. You got the more casual outlets there, like the USA Today's, the Newsweeks, and the Wired's, and all those people. And there was room for us to do our jobs. This year, it felt like it was starting to creep back in again. I think we saw a lot more sons and daughters of company executives there this year. And in all honesty, you cannot walk that floor without being exposed to extremely violent content. So to me, I felt like they started dipping their toes back into the way E3 was before, and ultimately, we know where that led. It led to some of the worst E3s ever.
I think dipping the toes may be an understatement. I think they were like waist deep.
Yeah, I think they may have fudged the numbers a little bit too.
It was 06 levels, but without that, I don't know if you remember in 06, Press had that 2-hour window on the first day.
Yeah, they really need
which
to
was
return
super
to that.
effective. That's going to be the buzzword for this episode. For getting stuff done, and this was just as crowded as it was in E3's past.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if maybe they fudged the numbers a little bit. It seemed like there were more people there than the numbers that they reported, but that's just anecdotal evidence from walking around the show and having gone to E3 for over a decade.
Well, I will say it hasn't gotten as loud as it used to be. I mean, I can actually hear people when I talk to them.
Were you at the Konami booth?
Or the Def Jam
was it
rap
the
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Konami was definitely the worst offender. I mean, and they had both the Rap Star thing and the Lucha Libres, which apparently took out 10 people by
wish I could've
jumping
seen
out of
that.
the ring or whatever.
I don't know. EA's booth was pretty loud too.
Yeah.
Trying to do anything like
I didn't think
walkthroughs
it
over
was
there.
Too bad, but yeah, I mean, they're always pretty loud at EA.
Yeah, I was running the floor all 3 days and just doing guerrilla work, shooting screens. I definitely ran into a pretty big handful of Best Buy employees and people like that. So that
Yeah, there were a lot more lines for
unsavory.
sure. I mean, you had lines for practically everything at Nintendo's booth. You had big lines for Kinect,
Pretty much
big
every
lines
big
for 3D.
game, even Mortal Kombat had an hour and a half wait just to see the demo in a little theater. So, definitely, what's that?
Not for me.
Well, we're lucky in that they bring us in the front of the line or whatever, so we can get our jobs done. But what else about E3? How did you guys feel about it?
The trailers were a little lackluster.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
we'll
were
see that when we
picking-
get to our E3 awards for trailers.
Yeah, our trailer of the show award yesterday was one of the easiest ones we've ever had. Like, we basically watched, what was it, like 30 or 40 we had on our hot list, and of those we really only felt like we had 5 solid nominees. I mean, there was lots of good stuff, but there were really only 5 that really sort of set it off.
Yeah.
And we're picky, we don't want things pre-rendered. We want to show gameplay, but if you're just going to show gameplay, at least cut it well.
Yeah.
I mean,
you had the
They're
Star Wars
hypocrites.
trailer. They spent reportedly $3.5 million on it, and then the other ones, it looks like they just captured some gameplay, grabbed the background track, and cut together their E3 trailer. So I would say definitely that was sort of a disappointment.
Yeah.
We are GameTrailers.com after all.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for me, this is my 9th E3. I think it was one of my easiest ones as far as dealing with publishers and stuff. I mean, at least my appointments, I had no issues, and I was able to get everything done.
Yeah, I
I didn't feel like I had to rush around.
I kind of felt like that too.
I heard Ryan's pretty awesome.
Here's the other problem I have: playables. So, if you're watching or listening to Invisible Walls, you probably know how we handle pretty much all our awards. They have to be a playable game. There's a few exceptions. We actually create a couple categories to recognize games that weren't playable at the show. But to be recognized for most of them, you have to be able to play them. And it's always this huge, for lack of a better term, clusterfuck, trying to figure out, like, can we nominate this game or not? Did anybody get a chance to play it? It's like the onus is put on us to beg them to play these games for them to be nominated. Yet then when our awards come out and the nominees come out, they're like, hey, why weren't we nominated? And they're like, well... And we're like, well, we couldn't play your games. And they say, well, why didn't you ask to play the games? It's like, that's not the way it should be. They know every award from every publication, it's the same deal. You have to play the game. Otherwise, there's all kinds of smoke and mirrors that can go on to deceive us. They can stand there and act like they're playing when it's really just a video playing. So it's not like it's unknown in the industry that the games have to be playable. So put the games on the floor and let people play them. This is an industry-only event. Like, put them out there if you want them considered for awards and you want recognition for your games. Let us play the games. I shouldn't have to call you, or I shouldn't get calls from you the next week saying, hey, why wasn't our game nominated? Well, let me play the game. Why didn't you ask? I'm not going to ask. It's not my job to ask.
Yeah, what were some of the biggest offenders? I know Dead Space wasn't played.
Call
Dead
of
Space
Duty
2,
Black Ops.
Black Ops.
Most of 2K's games, XCOM and Spec Ops especially, they just put everyone in a big theater room and showed them the demo there.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was even hard to get your hands on, but it was
I mean,
It was a judges only thing, right?
Judges, look, they have Judges Week, and we talked about this on the show before, and it's a week where we go and we see all the publishers and they show us their games, and that really, there's no excuse for not letting us play games at those events. I mean, that's what they're for. They're for official E3 judges. When you get to E3, all bets are off at that point. Like, we're so spread thin trying to cover this show with the staff that we have. It's like we can't make exceptions for an hour or two to go stand around and try to play a game. Like, it's very frustrating. It also, it makes the awards from one publication to another inconsistent because maybe some people on one side actually did get a chance to play it, maybe other people didn't. I just think that they need to create a standard. Either you put your game out on the floor and you let people play it, or you don't.
Well, we're going off the E3 Critics Awards because a lot of our competitors have nominated and have games winning that were definitely not playable.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, so...
And this goes back to several years ago at E3. There was a case where a publisher faked a demo, and the game ended up getting a lot of awards. And as it turns out, when it came out, it was a fake demo. And so since then, people have been really on guard about this. So note to you publishers out there: if you want your games nominated, put them out on the floor so our guys can play them. We have 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, where we will run over and try to play your games if we have that time. But we have a very rigid schedule when we cover E3. Ryan, you know this better than anyone, trying to cover the whole show with our staff. It would really be great if they could just put everything out there that they want us to consider for our awards.
Fuck it. I'm taking a shot. Wait for your orders, Sergeant.
All right, next we're going to talk about some games at the show that we consider underdogs. Stuff that we saw that we think has a lot of promise but kind of fell under the radar. I'm going to start off by saying Kirby, in all honesty. Like, that game blew me away, but if you really look at the numbers for that game on our site, like, no one really seemed to care. And it not only, the visuals are one thing, they're stunning and they're amazing, but I also like how they work the whole cloth and yarn into the gameplay mechanics. So for me, that's probably the one game that I think people didn't pay attention to that they probably should have. What about you, Stevens?
I'm going to kind of cheap out a little. I just want to say how year after year, and I'm still surprised, just the quality of DLC games is just getting like staggering. Like, everyone was blown away with Shadow Complex last year, but some of the stuff I'm seeing this year makes Shadow Complex look like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a souped up SNES game.
Well, they're kind of starting to call the publishers bluffs, right? Because the publishers are like, oh, well, we need $60 for these games. Well, now you're starting to see that there's these teams of small people who can make games that look every bit as good as full-price games.
It costs the price of 2 British lunches.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I mean, we always take the publisher's word for it. Okay, we assume that $60 is pretty much what you have to charge. When they bumped it from 50 to 60 for this gen, we were like, okay, well, we get it. The development time is a lot more intense. You need a lot more R&D, blah, blah, blah. But now we're starting to see that maybe some of that stuff is just money going straight into their pockets.
Yeah, well, dev teams are also huge as well for some of these bigger games. What, Warren Spector just announced 275 people on Epic Mickey?
What?
And that's a Wii game. So,
What?
One more time?
What?
Yeah.
New sound up.
But I mean, like, Assassin's Creed, what was it? Anyone? 450 people or something like that? Assassin's Creed 2? It's nuts. And now there's like a whole cottage industry in China of people that just like texture and model like simple, like coffee cups in games and stuff like that. It's getting a little
Well, you're starting to see
ridiculous.
two publishers are farming out parts of the game to different people.
And then, but even looking at these indie games, DLC games, I have no clue how many people are working on the Lara Croft game, which looks great.
Mm-hmm.
But Super Meat Boy, literally 2 people. Literally 2 people. 1 artist, 1 programmer.
I mean, look at some of the Wii games.
Limbo is 12 people.
I mean, look at Donkey Kong Country Returns. It's basically a 2D side scroller. Does that game really look much better than a lot of the DLC side scrollers we're seeing?
I think they may be kind of tied to a style guide. I mean, it's kind of that's Donkey Kong, but it looks just like Donkey Kong we've seen in every sports game. I wish they had maybe a little bit of leeway to.
Yeah, I think with that it has a
bit.
lot more to do with just all the stuff they have going on. The backgrounds and the characters, the enemies and stuff are really, really animated. Yeah.
That didn't flow for me, man. Some of those DLC games we saw at the show look every bit as good as Donkey Kong Country Returns and have just as much crazy shit going on in them. Like, I just think that at this point, like, these crafty guys who are busting their asses with a group of 5 or 10 people are really starting to show up some of these major publishers at this point. What about the rest of you guys? What were some of the underdogs that you saw at the show that you feel like didn't get their time in the sun that maybe they should have?
You're probably gonna make fun of me, but I like Blacklight Tango Down.
Marcus is gonna love you more than he already
There's
did.
a little disclaimer there. Yeah, I know we know Marcus, but that's not the reason I like the game. I actually enjoyed myself. I didn't get a chance to really play a lot of games. Granted, I was running everywhere and doing.
Which is the irony for all of us of at E3, right?
Yeah, you just want to play, and you're like, oh, I can't right now. I gotta run. But I played Little Big Planet 2. I wasn't completely feeling that, but I didn't have a chance to really get deep into that. But Blacklight, I spent about a good 20, 30 minutes on that, and it felt good. It felt great. I played it on the PC. I thought it was a lot of fun. So,
Damiani, you got a pick?
Yeah.
You don't sound too excited.
No, it's sad that this game's just getting overshadowed by everything and the timing. Valkyria Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
I mean, the first game was great.
Well, I think that's one of those games that's kind of near and dear to our staff. For whatever reason, it all kind of caught on with us, and we ended up talking about it and playing it, and so I think that might be one of those things where we care more about it than other
I don't
folks.
know. It was pretty well received, and it came out in Japan already, and it sold better than the original in Japan. And it just
This is on the PSP.
Why is it on the PSP?
Yeah, why is it on the PSP is the question in North America.
Because it's sold more in Japan.
It does better there in Japan, but it's just the timing, how long it's taken to come out here. I think it's kind of fallen out of its prime time to come out, and at E3 there's so many other heavy hitters. I just fell under the cracks. I don't think some people are asking, is it still coming out in North America? It's playable at E3. It's coming out in August, and I kind of wish that they would have done something more with it. But again, it's only a PSP game, and here PSP is kind of falling behind.
What about you, Blood?
It's not really so much a typical underdog, but something that didn't get as much attention on our site just because it's behind closed doors. I got to see the Deus Ex demo. And
which ended up leaking online.
Oh yeah, that did get online. But I was pretty impressed with it. I like a lot what they're doing, especially just the. I think with the situations they showed, at least it looks like there are a lot of options for you to go about different ways. Whether you're bribing somebody or you just outright kill them, or you go into a room a different way, and the stealth mechanics look pretty good too. So I think it does a lot of things well that Alpha Protocol should have done better. And
that's funny though, because Alpha Protocol is totally feeding off the first Deus Ex, which I'm actually replaying right now, and it's so funny. The game's 10 years old, I think, this week, and it's just hilarious to play this game, and it still has a lot of good mechanics. But to think that I'm on the Statue of Liberty Island, I don't even know what it's called, and just to think that this used to be great level design. It's just big open fields with occasional crates.
Yeah,
So we've
nostalgia
come a-
sometimes
We've
clouds
come a
the
long
judgment.
way. We've come a long way in 10 years. Sometimes I feel like Deus Ex was just, a couple years ago, but even its sequel is like 6 years old.
Yeah, Justin.
I didn't get to spend any time with it, but the Scott Pilgrim game sounds pretty
Yeah.
cool. I love
that gonna
old.
be your pick,
I love old
Morales?
school beat 'em ups, and it's like a cross between River City Ransom and
Oh yeah, totally. It's
Something
like
else?
River City Ransom. Imagine a composite between that, Battletoads, Sunset Riders. It's like a little.
yeah.
bit
I mean,
of
I just,
everything.
I really love games like that, and they really don't make them anymore. So yeah, kind of psyched for that.
You have another pick, Morales?
I do. Even though Brooks wasn't really feeling it, I was really impressed by Little Big Planet 2. I think maybe some people weren't as hyped after playing the first one because, I don't know, maybe the floaty controls or maybe the tools weren't as diverse as they thought it would be. But with Little Big Planet 2, they had some really good demos showing off what you could do with the new tool creation set. Literally, you could make a top-down bumper car game. You could make a side-scrolling action game. You can make a game with guns. You can make a game like Bionic Commando. So I think that lumped with just all the kinds of possibilities you could do with the new engine is really exciting for me personally. That's the modding geek in me talking right now.
And I have 2 honorable mentions before we move on. One of them is NBA Jam for the Wii. Now, it's really hard to judge this game because obviously we've all played NBA Jam for years and years, but for some reason playing it with the Wii remote and literally dunking when you dunk and ooping the ball to it just makes it fun. I saw one of our competitors actually gave it best sports game of the show.
Yeah,
It's
I can
tough
understand
because
that.
it honestly probably was the funnest sports game at E3. But it's also the same game that was made, so long ago with just sort of additional controls tacked
Well,
on.
it was really good before.
It
It's just,
was,
I mean,
yeah.
people, we have an arcade machine of NBA Jam. It still gets play.
It gets a lot of play. They
yeah.
actually have a sheet of records on the side of the machine as far as keeping track of who's won the most games and everything.
Do they have the classic teams like Bulls and Celtics, or is it like today's roster?
It's today's
That's
roster.
some modern dudes, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot, and it still has that kind of corny
Boom
photograph.
shakalaka.
Well, of course that,
Yeah.
but it also has the corny photographs that have the side profile, the quarter profile, the looking at you profile, and it just very quickly animates between those 3. But whatever it is fun. And then another game in that same vein is the new Mortal Kombat. It's completely gone back to the way old Mortal Kombat was, and I was able to jump right in and be competitive at the game. But it's just fun. It's simple fun. It's very much in the same vein as NBA Jam. You're like, should I be liking this as much as I am?
Well, it looks like they're putting some effort in to maybe try to make it more like a serious fighting game.
And the fatalities in that game are freaking awesome.
Yeah, they are.
They showed us a montage of fatalities, and they haven't really released this video out to the public. No one's really seen a lot of these, and all I can say is they're freaking awesome. They really, really nailed them, and we've only seen, just the top of what they have in the game so far.
It's like a third of the roster only that's been revealed right now.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the
there's a ton-
fatalities
yeah.
that they have are freaking sick, man. So I could see a nice revival for the MK franchise and for NBA Jam coming up very soon. Next, we're going to talk about, they probably have seen a little bit of this. We put up our E3 lowlights video over the weekend, kind of a fun look back at some of the more memorable and not so memorable moments from the E3 press conference.
And I do have to say, from the comments, people have to take a chill. They're like, "Why is Reggie in here? Nintendo was fantastic."
Yeah.
We're just cutting a video.
Well, that was the whole crux of it. It's like Reggie comes in,
And
he's
he's laughing at
watching.
him.
No, he's watching it on the 3DS or on the DS. So that was what the glue that kept the piece together is that it's Reggie watching all these gaffes. I
And-
can't believe people didn't get that.
Well, I also think going from Skittles to the actual Nintendog popping out
Yeah.
was pretty clever edit as well.
Yeah,
to
the
Marco.
1 million troops, all the 3DS babes.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a little jimmying with it, but we were just trying to have fun with it. Hopefully you guys got that. E3 video games are supposed to be fun. It's not deadly serious life.
Not like
death.
PC games.
Yeah.
Serious
Now,
business.
on that note, we're going to briefly talk about the Konami press conference. Now, this one kind of happened after the others. We didn't have a live stream of it for various reasons.
Well, Konami had a live stream. Me and Damiani were at home base capturing it, and we just could not believe how they just kept one-upping. Is it even one-upping? Would it be
One downing
One down,
themselves?
yeah, leveling down.
20 minutes. Rich was there. It was 20 minutes late. technical errors, and then each person they brought out was just worse than the person before them, pretty much.
Yeah, as soon as Russell Simmons came on and gave that speech, I mean, I knew we were in for a long ride with that press conference.
Yeah.
But honestly, it may have been the most entertaining press conference of all of them.
Yeah, I think that's
Not
pretty
intention-
safe to say.
Was it? It's so bad. Do you think on some level it was intentional so people
No,
would remember?
no. I have been to several Konami gamers.
Yeah,
nights.
they're all
They
bad.
usually are.
That's
yeah.
why there's no cameras at them.
I mean, it was just a debacle, pretty much from top to bottom.
What were those guys doing when they were sitting on the stage, turning around on their butts?
That was
They
the
were playing
dance.
Dance
Oh, that was the guy.
That was
who
the new DDR.
The guy who
I
invented
mean, did
Dance
they
Dance
honestly
Revolution.
think that was going to be entertaining for us to watch when they're
Yo,
Yes,
buddy.
yes, it was.
Live your
Yeah,
body.
and this is also, I mean, people, gave me some grief for giving the Microsoft press conference a B, but these are why, I have seen a lot of press conferences.
Yeah, I mean, it was just wow. I mean, it's just one moment after the next of did anybody rehearse this or did anyone watch this? I mean, I get it. Look, they're a Japanese company. They want their Japanese developers to come out. We can forgive some English here or there. But man, like it was just a total misunderstanding of the culture, or I don't even know what it was. It was just a freaking nightmare.
It was like they were putting on a really bad skit.
It's so
Yeah.
bad. I just felt like it was intentional. Like people will walk away remembering this one.
But even the parts where you were like what was the game called? The Automatus Surprise Excellence.
Automedius.
Like
Excellent.
that guy was very earnest. I mean, maybe a little silly, but he's like, this is gonna be a really good shooting game. Da 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 da. And then their post production is anime girls like fawning over each other.
It was like Lolicon. I was like, what the hell is
Well,
this?
then they gave the wrong lower third to one guy and said it was Russell Simmons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's crazy about the Konami press conference is that after watching Ubisoft, just a day before, I was like, wow, nothing can be as bad as this.
But I would have rather sat through the Konami press conference than sit through the Ubisoft one.
I don't know, man. Those audience shots when the Glee people were walking around, they didn't look very happy.
Yeah, after the press conference, all those GIFs hit the internet, and that one thread we were looking at was just GIF after GIF of the whole show. It had you in tears. We were
Oh
all
yeah, I was
cracking
laughing
up.
so hard I was literally crying.
It couldn't have hit at a better time because it was late in the night. We'd finished the show that day, and it's just like kind of winding down. But then that.
Well, at that point, I had just got into it. It was like 10 or 11 at night, and I think
Yeah.
everyone else had sort of already run through the Konami thing.
Yeah.
So the first thing I saw were these GIFs that they were creating, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Did this really
They
happen?"
look like jokes, right?
Yeah,
It was like.
Yeah. I think we could all say that was probably the worst E3 press conference in the history of E3.
Or the best.
The best
or the
worst.
best, depending on your perspective.
The best worst.
How are you doing, Naoki? I'm very, very excited. Oh, God, a little bit more to go.
All right, lost in the midst of the E3 insanity was a product launch that actually was kind of a big deal. I did a bunch of interviews for like Reuters and BBC, and this is the one thing they always ask me about other than the 3DS, and it was the launch of On Live.
The cloud computing has begun.
Console.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
They actually had a booth too. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone
They had a
got by.
huge booth. They had a huge presence there, and
Pretty big.
it's been out now for a few days. Basically, they gave us press accounts, and you had to sign up, and then it waited a few days before they activated your account. My account was finally activated on Monday, so I've actually had a couple days to mess around with it. Fire away, guys. What are your questions about On Live?
Well, how different is it from when you saw it at GDC 2 years ago?
That's a good question. I mean, in all honesty, it functions about the same. I would say the way the games run aren't quite as smooth as they were at that first event, which makes sense because no one was using the service then, and the servers were 50 miles away. Now
And
I'm
you're running off cable, right?
running off of cable internet, yeah. So the first game I played was Batman Arkham Asylum. Just wanted to check it out. It was a game I had already played. I felt like I had a good frame of reference to see comparatively how it stacked up. The game looked pretty good. You definitely lose some fidelity. There's definitely some artifacting. When there's a lot of action or explosions on screen, things break up a little bit. But overall, I think the visuals are something that people would be willing to deal with, provided they're getting that game at a lower cost or at a discount. You're definitely getting sort of the diet version of these games. It seemed to run okay, but after I played it for about 45 minutes, I started getting motion sickness. And I've been playing games my whole life. I've got motion sickness, I think, 3 or 4 times in my entire life from playing video games. So I started feeling a little weird. I kind of stepped away from it. I went back. I went to play some Dirt 2. Dirt 2 is basically unplayable. I mean, a
Yeah, that's
racing
what I was
game,
wondering about racing games.
You try anything online?
No, I haven't tried any online games yet.
Was it Forsaken on the N64 that got you sick?
No, it was Jaws Unleashed was the last game that got me sick.
Oh, right.
And literally, I laid on the couch for 3 hours trying to get over it. This one, like, I walked away and I was okay, like, 40 minutes later or whatever. But I started playing Dirt 2, and, like, with the latency, you just cannot play a racing game. It's like you need that control every millisecond, especially in a game like Dirt where there's bumps and you're constantly adjusting for the terrain. Like, it was just pointless. I tried the same race, like, I don't know, 5 times in a row and never finished higher than third because inevitably the game would bog down and someone would smash into me and knock me into the wall. It's like I couldn't play it. Now, like I said, I thought Batman performed pretty well. I don't know if that was just me or if there's some weird kind of, if they're dropping frames in between that you can't perceive with your eye, because it seemed to run pretty smooth to me, but then I started getting sick. So, overall, the performance of the games on the service, I think if the average person looked at it, they'd be like, holy cow, how are they doing that? Like, it is still pretty amazing what they're doing, but I think for players like us and for our audience, I don't think the experience is quite where it needs to be. And you also got to keep in mind, not that many people are using it yet. They gave out a lot of free accounts. I think they're sponsored by someone that's, some company that's paying for a bunch of free accounts. And one thing I will say that is cool is when you first boot it up, you have all these little screens. And these are all the people playing on live. Literally, you can click on any of those and instantly start watching the people play the game. Like, instantly. And then you can sit there and watch them play, and then you can say, oh, you're doing great, and give them a cheer. Or like, oh, you suck, and give them a jeer. So you see these updates while you're playing of people
Our users would love that.
No, I know. They'd probably like to do that with this show. I thought that was really, really cool. Like, literally, there's hundreds of little screens, and you can click on any of them at any time, and it immediately zaps you there.
Would it have been cooler if you could use Natal?
No.
Sorry, Connect to interface with that?
That's kind of like Ustream, right?
Yeah, but literally on your screen, there's dozens and dozens of these little windows of people playing. You click on one, and it immediately zaps to full screen, and you're basically watching this person play. Thought that was cool. The pricing, yeah.
How about that hardwired connection?
Yeah, the other thing, too, is I tried to play it on my webbook, which is, an underpowered, basically just used for internet browsing and work-related stuff. I can watch HD video on it without it bogging down. But you have to have a hardwired connection. No matter how strong your wireless connection is, it's mandatory that you're hardwired, which is kind of a downer. But I think the biggest downer is the price. It's $15 a month for the service, and then you still have to pay for the games. And the prices of the games, basically there's 2 models for where you can quote-unquote rent the games. Those models are basically the same pricing that you pay if you went to Blockbuster or somewhere else to rent it. But then if you pay for the full game, you actually still do not own that game. You still only have it, I think it was for 2 years or a year and a half, I can't remember.
What?
You only have it for a certain amount of time, and then it gets wiped out of your account. So.
And how much is a full game?
I think Batman was $24.99 for the full game.
That's too much, yeah.
So, I think it's ahead of its time, in all honesty. I think maybe once we all have Fios and we have huge pipes, it might be able to work.
Okay. PSP Go or OnLive?
I'd PSP Go.
Play it on the toilet.
It's portable. If you get a PSP Go now, all the games that come out for the PSP you can download. So going forward, I don't see an issue with the PSP Go, and it's a much better form factor, and I enjoy playing it more. But maybe 4 years down the road, when we all have fiber optic internet, I think OnLive could be brilliant. They're certainly planting the seed and getting their foot in the door before everybody else. But right now, I don't think the pricing is right. I don't think the service is all that great, considering that no one's really using the service yet. It just launched. The more people that use it, the more problems they're going to have. And I also feel like their promise of saying, well, you're going to get a display that's equivalent to the highest end PC cards that are on the market at the time just simply isn't true. These games don't even look as good as the Xbox version of those games. And granted, they look pretty good, and I think people could play them without having too many complaints, but they haven't delivered on what they said, which is, you won't have to upgrade the video card on your machine. We're going to do it here in our server farm, so you'll always have cutting-edge graphics, and in all honesty, I didn't see that.
All right. Thanks, Tommy, and good luck with the dye job on your hair. So thank
I'll see you later.
Sorry. And right on. Nice suspenders. Good job, Tommy.
All right, that's going to do it for Invisible Walls episode 113. I do want to say thank you guys so much for coming to the site and for watching our live streams and for tagging along on the ride with us through the whole week. You're the folks that basically keep us employed. We really, really appreciate your support of GameTrailers.com. Much love for the GT Massive after E3 week. But we do have one more thing we want to talk about before we leave, and we're going to talk about our personal favorite moments from the madness that was E3 2010. Ryan, what was your one personal moment?
Oh, well, going off, our great GT community, it would have to be reading all the comments of any of the stage stuff I did. Everyone,
I like those videos.
Yeah, everyone guessing on my sexual preferences, calling out my lazy eye.
I wouldn't say they were guessing. Making assumptions.
And I just, I feed on this. This is what makes me stronger.
You're really, really tall too.
Yeah. And I did like the one comment Daniel dug out as that once was surprised I wasn't a hipster and expects us all to be hipsters. I'll be sending you an 8x10 glossy, where I'll be wearing a white belt. And for everyone who thought I was really tall, I'm like average height. These guys are just pretty short.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't be able to get me in the shot with them.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand why people are mean on the internet. But anyway, Justin, what was your one shining moment?
I don't feel like I have a really good one. I mean, I was super busy the whole time, but I was able to take some time on the last day, and I'm still a little bit of Patrick's thunder here because he interviewed Ed Boon, but I saw the Mortal Kombat thing backstage, and I just got really psyched for it,
Yeah, I'm not alone in that, though.
I think Marvel vs. Capcom 3 looks pretty good, but honestly, like Mortal Kombat 3 kind of, it seemed to resonate with me, I felt like, this could be really cool.
It was fun.
Saw a bunch of cool stuff, so yeah, I'm pretty psyched for that. More than I think I should be even, but I'm daring to dream that I can actually make a good fighting game out of Mortal Kombat.
Dare to Dream was Cliff Bleszinski's first game.
Patrick, what was your one moment? Well, I think it's kind of spoiled at this point.
Sorry,
right?
my bad. I couldn't think of anything else good.
Justin got
So
it.
I stole yours.
I've been playing fighting games since I was a wee zygote, and Mortal Kombat being one of them. So meeting Ed Boon was definitely a cool thing.
Was that the first time you've met him?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Wow.
totally. And not only that, I got to interview him too. So.
And on top of that, he is a great guy.
Oh yeah, totally.
He's very much like a Ted Price. Like he's
Yeah.
totally in it for the right reasons. He's an awesome guy, very friendly, very nice, very cordial. I love Ed Boon.
Yeah, super nice, and he definitely knows what he's doing with this new game. I wish him the best, and I totally can't wait to play it.
Mike Damiani.
Getting to skip ahead of everyone to try out the 3DS. Skip it now, not just everyone, the VIP line as well.
So your elite status is
So
what,
and then when I got to go up and see it, the first thing I got to see was Ocarina of Time in 3D. And when they asked me, they go, "Hey, have you seen the new Zelda trailer?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course, everyone's seen it." He goes, "Oh, we have it here on the 3DS." I'm like,
Wait a
"Why do I want to watch it on the 3D? 3D maybe." And I look down, I'm like,
oh wait.
Whoa!
Skyward
it blew my mind. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And that was my first experience with 3DS, was seeing freaking Ocarina of Time,
good.
and I was like, "Wow, nice."
At which they pulled away, apparently.
They pulled it away from you?
Oh no, they didn't pull it away.
No, they took it from the floor.
Apparently it wasn't supposed to be shown off until after the round table that night. So someone kind of blew it, and it leaked, and then they're like, yeah, it's coming out. So it was cool to see it.
Brooks?
Yeah, so I had an appointment over at Crave.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "Oh, there might be a celebrity there, just so you know." And I was like, "All right, well, who could it be?" Because they do a partnership with Discovery Channel, and they have The Deadliest Catch and Man vs. Wild. And so, yeah, I got over there, and lo and behold, it was my hero, Bear Grylls.
Awesome.
Really?
And I just watched him the other night on Netflix, like going
Man
to
vs. Wild, right?
Yeah, Man vs. Wild, and he's just an awesome dude. And he was a little out of his element. I could tell he was a little shaken up. He's not used to these concrete structures.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
the transistors and.
He used to drinking from rivers and stuff. But he was really cool, and getting to meet him and interview him was really neat. And then I asked him at the end of the interview, which didn't go into our interview when we cut it, what were your tips to survive E3? And he said, know where your exits are. So.
And be ready to run.
That was pretty funny. You have any survival tips for E3?
Yeah, always know your exits.
Yeah.
Bloodworth.
Yeah, I'd say other than running into a friend I hadn't talked to in like 7 years, who should probably not even been at the show, he borrowed somebody's badge. My highlight was after I did my interview with the guys at Retro, I was in Nintendo's little private room, and so I was able to just sit down and check out the 3DS myself, which from the lines the day before, I didn't think I was going to get a chance.
One that wasn't attached to a woman.
Yeah, and the first thing I had to check out was Metal Gear, which is probably pushing the system the most right now as far as what they had out there on the floor. So looked really good, and I'm pretty psyched to see what Kojima's going to do with it.
And my most memorable moment was an interview I did with Tomonobu Itagaki. Now, Itagaki-san's interviews are always interesting. When you go to do an interview with this guy, you just can't do it like you do interviews with everybody else. He's really into cameras. He's really into photography. So the first thing that happens is he checks your gear when you come in. So he looks at your camera, he looks at your lighting, he looks at your audio equipment, then he asks you a couple questions about it. And keep in mind, you have a 20-minute window to get set up, get the interview done, etc. So went through that whole rigmarole. Then, he was like, you're too close, you're too far. We had to flip the viewfinder. He has to okay the shot before you finally get the shot ready. So we went through all that. We finally get to the interview, and of course it has to be translated. So one of the first questions I asked him was, and I'm kind of spoiling our interview, which may or may not be up by now. I asked him, I was like, where did the name Tokyo Vikings come from? And I fully expected him to say, we're raiding Tokyo, and we're going to take everybody down, and we're going to throw it on the ground, blah, blah, blah. No. Literally, the story he told me for Tokyo Vikings was that originally they were going to call their studio the Steelers. He looks at me and he's like, now they're the champions of American football, right? And I was like, year before last. And I'm like the world's biggest Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Pirates, Penguins, Steelers, I'm all over all those teams. So my eye was like, what? And he's like, yeah, and then we thought about it, and he's like, I like the Minnesota Vikings colors and name better, so we named our studio Tokyo Vikings. It has nothing to do with, the Vikings.
Which now it's actually called Valhalla, right?
Right. Which is weird, because then I guess they actually did take the Viking aesthetic, and then when they changed the name ultimately, but I was just blown away by that.
Do you think Itagaki could make a football game?
I would like to see a football game that Itagaki made.
It's all girl football.
I would like to see a football game that Itagaki made. So anyway, that was sort of the one memorable moment I had. The rest of the interview was just as off the wall and interesting. That guy is always a great interview, so make sure you check it out on the site. But that was my one moment at E3 where I was just like, WTF.
Hey, Ryan Stevens from GameTrailers. I'm here with Tim Willis, the creative director from id Software. Very cool. He's going to show us Rage, and it already looks amazing. Take it away, man.
So anyway, that's it. That's our final E3 wrap. We'll probably be back next week to talk about our Best of E3 awards. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of venom flying around on the message boards after they all go up. We will be on next week to explain ourselves and kind of kick it into next gear. The year is kind of turning over at this point. We're now starting to look at Q4. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We definitely love the support you guys give us. Invisible Walls is up and out.